Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start. At least there'll be a recording. I'm not sure if it's working correctly or not. So I am Christy Loudon, and today I'm going to be talking about some ways that I have found to give feedback. So I'm going to move this over to bring up my slideshow, and then I'll try to check back and see if there are comments or anything. Okay, hopefully you are seeing a PowerPoint or slideshow right now. Okay, so we're going to talk about strategies for giving effective writing feedback. Although it doesn't just have to be writing, I feel like you could use these strategies in many different ways. So I'm Christy Loudon, like I said. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Loud and Clear Blog. You can reach me through email, or I'd love it if you check out my blog, loudandclearblog.com. Just a little bit about myself. I have been teaching this is my 12th year. I've been in the state of Alabama for 11 of them and at Hoover High School for 9. I've taught 9th grade English, 10th grade English, 11th grade English, pre-AP, pre-IB, public speaking, all different things. So, I've been kind of honing different skills over the years. And this year I have a new position as an instructional coach. And so that, along with my blogging, has really allowed me to reflect a lot more and kind of see what's working and what's not working. So I've been trying to take that into account as I, kind of try to work on specific areas of teaching. I have learned that I am extra passionate about teaching writing, and then because of that, I've realized that feedback is just so incredibly important. So I've tried to work on improving that area of my teaching as well. So I don't know if anybody's actually here, but if you are, tell us where you're at. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to switch back and forth between this screen I think you're seeing now and the screen that looks really crazy, because I don't know how else to see the chat window. So forgive my ignorance with this, but it's my first time doing an online Hangout thingy. So where are you from? I'm excited that there are a couple people here, and I hope we can, share some ideas. Okay, so our agenda for today, we're going to just kind of talk through why feedback is important. I'm sure we can all agree and already know that it's important, but there are a couple of areas that I found kind of almost surprising and more convincing for me to put as much time and effort into giving feedback, because I've realized how important they are. When to give feedback, and then the tools for giving feedback. And then, if you want to have some time to play with the different things that I'm talking about or ask questions or whatever, we can do that. All right. Number of hours teachers spend giving feedback, 57%. Of kids who don't read feedback, 98.76. These are my very official research that I've done. Just kidding. But I think we all know, I hate to, contribute or promote the fake news, but my point is that we work really hard to try to give our kids feedback, and then they don't pay any attention to it. We have those couple kids. That kid who got a 97% or whatever probably reads this feedback and makes some adjustments. But the kids we really need to help grow, see their grade, and then trash their paper or put it wherever you told them to. So I found a few ways over the years to kind of help with that problem, which is what we're going to talk about. So why give feedback? First reason is to provide some guidance. I have found that doing this process of giving feedback, especially during the writing process, really helps students to find direction. I know that my kids really struggle with knowing where to start or where to go once they have some ideas. And so helping them find direction has been great. Giving them reminders along the way, hey, don't forget, you should be doing this. I noticed you've been doing such and such. Just because, writing is hard, and kids get overwhelmed and they feel like they can't do it because they maybe haven't had great writing experiences, or maybe you're asking them to do something different. So just being able to give them reminders, ask them questions. I ask how and why constantly. It drives them crazy, but I'll even get to a point where I say, what would I ask you? And they're like, how did such and such? I'm like, good. Now you ask yourself that, and then giving them examples, so sometimes I'll even pull up another student's paper, or I'll say, hey, so-and-so, can I see your paragraph really quick? And I'll show them, hey, this is kind of the formatting we were talking about. And that gives me just that one-on-one opportunity. And you get to highlight somebody else's good work. So it kind of works both ways. Familiarity, I mean, for me with the students writing. So if I'm giving feedback along the way, and to me, this kind of all fits into conferencing with them as well, but that's not the only way we can give feedback. It helps me get to know their writing. If I'm getting feedback during the writing process, then I know the student's writing. I also know what they're writing about, which could come in handy later. I'll talk about that in a second. I start to understand the struggles and confusions that all the kids are facing, and then I can plan many lessons around that. Like if I've just met or given feedback on everybody's paragraph before we head into writing some other part of the essay, then I can say, okay, we are struggling with integrating our quotes. So we're going to stop for a minute and we're going to go back and do this. So it just kind of helps me monitor, I guess would be a good way to put it. And then helps me learn my students' voices too. And kind of sometimes I might be looking for an example and I can think, ooh, so-and-so is writing about, the American dream. So I'm going to pull hers to kind of help these other kids. So it just helps us know who's doing what and how they're doing, and then monitor the class as a whole. And then last, it also helps kids to focus, keeps them on task if they know that you're going to be checking in on them and giving them feedback, keeps them on track. And then it helps my students learn what to look for. They know, by the end of the year, they're like, oh, I really noticed that you've been telling me my sentences are kind of awkward sounding and I've been working on that, but this sentence just sounds weird. Can you help me with that? And so for them to be able to start pinpointing what they're struggling with, I think is a really great reason. I'll also say that for just a totally selfish reason, it makes grading so much faster. If I have been giving feedback along the way, then when we get to that quote unquote end product, boom, 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 I can get through those because I've already read them multiple times. So to me, all of those things just make it worth it. Do you have any other resources or reasons you can think of? I'm sure there are a lot I'm missing. I will tell you this quick story. Thanks to giving feedback along the way and conferencing with my students, I know what my kids are writing about pretty much all the time. And so we got to our argument essays last year, and I had one student who hadn't checked in with me in a little while, and he didn't have much written. And so, but I knew what he was writing about and everything. And then, lo and behold, he turns his essay in, and it just really didn't sound like him because by now I know his voice, and it doesn't sound like his voice. And so I call him in, I start asking him some questions, and he answers them, and I think, maybe I'm wrong. So I flipped to the last page, and he's talked about some famous people like Meryl Streep. And I said, oh, who's Meryl Streep? And he said, Miss Loudon, I don't know. I was like, oh, that's weird. Why'd you write about her in your conclusion? And then he just went, oh, you got me. And he explained to me the whole situation. And if I hadn't known along the way, where he was at, what he was writing about, what his voice is like, I might not have picked up on those things. So I hate to say it's good for catching cheaters, but it's good for catching cheaters. So just one more benefit. Okay, so when to give feedback? Honestly, like all the time. Before might sound kind of awkward, but I consider feedback to also come in the form of like models, examples, resources, clear directions before the essay. So obviously I can't really give them feedback, but we might do something like have everyone write a thesis sentence. They put it into a Google form. They all pop up on the projector, and we go through and critique and fix. And then the kids can go back to their thesis right there on their paper and fix it in real time while we're talking about it. So to me, that's kind of before, just because, we haven't really delved in and we're not like in the middle of the process yet. During is key, and we're going to talk more about that. And then at the end, I still think it can be useful, but like I'm about to share with you, it's not the only time that they should get feedback. So if you're familiar with Caitlin Tucker, who I think is awesome, she had on Twitter the other day, don't spend 90% of your energy or time giving feedback on a finished product. Put that 90% into giving students feedback as they work. So I have found over the last few years that this is vital. And so that's the bulk of what we're going to talk about today. Honestly, I put this for 45 minutes. It's definitely not going to take that long. Okay. I hope this is working for y'all and I'm not just talking to myself here. Okay, so some of my favorite tools. I'm going to go through about 6 tools and talk about how I've used them and or if I haven't used them yet, like how I hope to use them or how I think they could be used. So hopefully there's at least 1 or 2 here that you can take back with you and use pretty soon because they're all pretty easy. So the first one is Notability. If you're not familiar with Notability, it's an iPad app. So if you don't have an iPad, you can fast forward a little bit. This will be real quick though. We were a one-to-one iPad school before we were a one-to-one Chromebook school. And I would use Notability, which I will show you real quick. I have a paper pull up on my screen. You can see my tools up at the top, up here. And then right here, there's a recording feature. And it was awesome because I could record and put a little note. And so kids would get their papers back and they could listen to all my recordings. So when you download it from here and send it to them, you download it with the audio attached. So that was awesome. And then when we got rid of iPads, I was like, oh no. So I had to find kind of some alternates, which is what I'm going to show you next. So Notability is awesome. You can give verbal feedback, you can give written feedback, but it's only good if you have an iPad. Google Docs, to me, is probably, the easiest, most, what's it called? Like accessible way to do this. One thing I do is I have students, one of the things I do is I have students turn in an assignment and have them highlight a specific part. So like I told my students when they completed this chart to fill out or to highlight one row that they wanted feedback on. And that was the only row I was going to give them feedback on before they wrote their papers. That way I could still look and make sure they're integrating their quotes correctly. I can make sure that, they were doing all the things they're supposed to be doing. And then the idea was now you apply that feedback to the rest of your chart as you write your paragraph. This year I found it's been working really well. And I do that throughout, like when they were writing their paragraph, I would say, if you need help with something, just highlight a specific section and either bring it up to me or share it with me, and I'll give you a little bit of feedback on that. I had a couple kids ask questions like, I don't understand how we're supposed to improve when you only give us feedback on one part. Like, well, technically all 3 parts are kind of the same. So you now need to take the feedback and understand it and use it. So you can give written feedback. You can also use pre-programmed comments, which are like editing comments and whatnot. I have 2 things on the last slide with resources. One is from Caitlin Tucker, and she gives directions on how to add those. And then there's a new extension called Checkmark, I think, and it has like canned responses. I haven't delved into it enough to know if you can add responses, but if so, I think that's gonna make grading, at least for the grammatical stuff, a lot faster. So I'm pretty excited about that. So Google Docs, I also have I have 2 other links at the end of my presentation. One from Adam Schoenbart. No, I can't remember. He has a blog and he's awesome. And one from Chris Miller, who actually guest posted on my blog, both talking about using Google Ask for Education to delay the grade and give feedback. So I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. But being a one-to-one Chromebook school with all the kids having Google Docs, this has just been like really handy for giving feedback along the way. The next one is Voxer. If you haven't used Voxer, I highly recommend it. I was totally against it at first. It's an app. There's also a website, or you can download it or something, but I have it on my phone. And it's just a voice app. They call it a walkie-talkie, but it's not really. It's more like a voicemail system. So I was totally against it. I was like, oh gosh, I don't want to just listen to people. It's amazing. I started using it this summer in a book study with people from school, and now I'm sort of obsessed. I've started 2 Voxer groups, one for instructional coaches and one for high school English teachers, and that's been super handy. I've contacted just some other teachers. I've talked to Jennifer Gonzalez from Cult of Pedagogy because I write for her every now and then, so we kind of communicate through there. But I was thinking from a teaching perspective, I think it'd be cool to use to give feedback. I'll be honest, I haven't used this yet. But a couple ideas was if you had a whole class Voxer account where all the kids were in one group, then you could just leave general feedback. Hey guys, I've read the essays. Here are some things I've noticed. You know, just kind of a shout out to everybody. Or you could, as you read a class, you could record yourself giving specific feedback, or even just like at the end, here are my thoughts. Here are 3 things you need to improve. Here are 3 things you did really well, or something like that. And then when that student is ready, they can have their paper out or open and listen to your Vox and get your verbal feedback. I have found that when I can give verbal feedback, I am way more detailed. And I can just explain myself. We all know how long it takes to write comments. It takes forever. Kids can't read my handwriting, even though it's not that bad. And so giving verbal feedback, I'm able to explain what I mean. Instead of just saying awkward, I say, you know, this sentence is just really wordy, which makes it awkward. If you were to do this or that, then that might help, blah, blah, blah. And the kids are like, oh my gosh, now I understand what you've been saying this whole time. So I think verbal feedback is really the best way to go. And I'm going to show you a couple other ways to do that. Canvas, this one won't apply to everybody, but I just want to show you how I use it really quickly. So it's a learning management system. Our school uses pretty much everyone uses Canvas or Classroom. And I know Google Classroom is all the rage and it's super awesome or whatever, but I like to be able to organize things, and that's where Canvas comes in. So I'm just going to show you my Canvas page really quickly. Or not my page, but this is me grading an assignment in Canvas. So I have a couple options. I have the kids turn in their Google Drive. But the thing I like about that is I can quickly switch between them. And I meant to hide names, so sorry about that. But what I can do is, that's not what I meant to do. I apologize again. Pull that back out. There we go. I can put comments right on here just like I can in Google Docs, which is awesome, but it opens in here and I can grade it right in here and everything. And then I can leave comments. I can also leave audio feedback. I can upload a video if I want to, and I'm going to show you how I would do that. And then I can also post attachments. So I could put the rubric on here, whatever I need to do. This is how I have kids turn in. If I'm just giving quick feedback, I'm like, hey, everybody turn that in on Canvas. I'm going to go through, give you quick feedback. And then you'll have that, and then, you know, then when we come back to it, I'm like, okay, everybody go to Canvas, open your document, you have all my comments. If I left voice messages, then you can listen to those. So I've liked Canvas just because it's streamlined and it keeps everything in one place, and I can do all different kinds of feedback. So I know not every school uses Canvas, but I have found it a delight because it's super organized. If you want to know more about that, contact me, because I could go on for a while about it. So I won't here because that's not what my presentation's about. Okay. The next one that I love is good old sticky notes. So this year I had my students, or I always have my students use like a writer's notebook, just a composition notebook. But this year I actually kind of took it to the next level with actual writer's notebook, thanks to Moving Writers and several other awesome sites out there. And so when my students were working on open letters, they wrote a down draft. Those are the words of Kelly Gallagher that I love, just get a draft down. And then I gave them like 5 areas to focus on, and I had them choose one and write a couple questions on a sticky note. So I said, pick an area that you think is your weakest, put it on a sticky note and ask me 1 or 2 questions, put it right on your notebook, sticking out on the page you want me to check. And then I just went through and I was able to really quickly look at just what they wanted, you know, so I could read it and I had all kinds of thoughts, but I only gave them feedback right on their piece about whatever they asked in their sticky note. So that's super old school, but it gives nice focused feedback. And the kids took that feedback and then just got right back to work. And if they had questions, they'd come see me. So, you know, good old sticky notes can be the way to go, especially if your kids have done some handwriting stuff and you just want it to be like a quick turnaround, which is when you're doing the writing process, you know, it kind of has to be quick or else it's going to be a while. Some days I'll plan for, you know, you're going to turn in your first paragraph tomorrow, and then we're going to do something else. And then I'll get them back to you in 1 to 2 days, and then we'll keep going. You know, so I try to plan for that. But then I also do feedback through conferencing, which allows it to be a little bit faster, like 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 minutes per kid over the course of like 2 days, and I can get through everybody. So, but sticky notes just make it, I can just slap some comments on there, give them back, super easy, you know, it all works. And then my last and favorite, I saved the absolute best for last. If you are not using Screencastify right now, you should just stop listening to me and go download it. It's a Chrome extension. It creates, as you can probably guess, screencasts. So what I would do is I will open Screencastify while I'm in a student's document on Canvas, just like this, which you can see now. And I will I will read the essay first, and then I'll hit record, which you can see it up here. This is the, actually I can click on it without starting to record yet. This is the recording extension. I can do just this tab. I can use my desktop, or I can do the camera like I'm doing now, or, you know, like Google Hangouts does. But I usually just do the tab because all I need to see is this. That way I can switch back and forth if I need to look at something. And then I just record the screen while I read their essay, and I can highlight things and say, hey, you know, this sentence is really interesting, but maybe you could try this, or wow, this is such a good intro. I'm going to share this with the rest of the class. You know, I found that recording using Screencastify or using other verbal, I give way more positive feedback. Because, you know, when we're writing, sometimes we run out of time to give positive feedback, which just sounds so terrible. But, you know, we just like got to keep going. And so I always feel bad about that. But this way I can give positive feedback. I can be more specific, and it's still quick. It's still just a couple minutes per essay because I'm not writing. And so it's awesome. The one downside is you can only do it when you're like alone. So, you know, that can be kind of a pain. But anyways, I love Screencastify. I mean, I could really go on and on and on about it. I won't. But just as a side note, I'll really quickly say that I also use Screencastify to like explain assignments if I'm not going to be at school, or send parents explanations of what the kids are supposed to be doing so that they can see that the kids are probably, when they say they don't know what's happening, not correct. Anyways, Screencastify is amazing. I love it. Out of all of the things on the screen right now, that is the one I would say if you're going to try anything in the next couple of weeks, try that. It's you could use it for any assignment. If you're a physics teacher, you know, you could pull up their lab report and say, hey, here's what you're doing well, here's what you're not doing well, you know, whatever. It just makes it more personal. It's like you're conferencing, but you don't have to have everybody right there. Are there any other tools that y'all like to use? I would love to hear about them. I kind of thought, I didn't really know how this would work, so I didn't know if we'd actually get to like chat or something, but apparently not. But if there are tools you like to use, I'd love if you'd share them with me, either like in the comments if that's a thing, or email them to me, or send them to me at Loud and Clear blog. You know, lots of options. Okay, so the next part of this is once you find a tool, that's awesome. But how do you make kids actually pay attention to the tool, or pay attention to the feedback, and then, surprise, surprise, use it? So here are a few things that I found to be helpful. One is have students record feedback. So I give my students like a chart or an organizer or whatever that has like, what's the name of this essay? What grade did you get? Did you rewrite it? Or are you going to rewrite it? Or, you know, whatever. What feedback did you get? So I have them, you know, just kind of take my feedback from their essay and put it on this chart. So they're kind of keeping track. And then the next one, they add it to the chart. I'll be honest, I am not super great at keeping up with this, and I'm trying to get better. This year, that's one of my goals, is to, you know, keep up with it. I think another awesome thing to do would be to keep a portfolio and have the kids reflect after each essay. So actually, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about something I might do this week. You know, so they have their essay, they have their rubric, and now maybe they just have a sheet of paper where they have written a little reflection. You have some questions. What did you learn from this? What's something you might do differently next time based on the feedback? What's something you know you need to work on? You know, just something easy. Are there any questions you have about what you need to work on? And that would give us some insight into what they're thinking, and also just kind of show how they're doing along the way. I think I'm doing all of those things this week. Now I'm kind of excited. And then lastly, have students use feedback. I allow rewrites in my class. And it's just no good if, you know, if the students read it and then leave it or throw it away or whatever they do. So I allow redos and rewrites. I'm about to show you kind of a handout that I do for that. And it's copied on the resource page. But one of the things I do is I allow students to rewrite, but I have requirements because otherwise they just think they can change a couple of commas and they're like, oh, I rewrote it. So I have them like print this document you see here. They have to come meet with me. Like they have to meet with me once about their grade, which I'll talk about. And then they have to meet with me once in the rewrite process. And they have to have the date and time. And then I will sign it to say, yes, that happened. They have to rewrite it in the same document. And then they use the suggesting feature. That way I can look at their paper and see what changes they made, and it makes grading way faster. And I don't have to have two versions open to see like, did they actually change anything? And then they print the essay or they turn it in with the suggestions, and they have to turn in everything, the original, the rewrite, the reflection, the rubric, everything. And then I'm also really strict. I'm not super strict about late stuff in the first place, which is terrible. Excuse me. But I'm like, if you're rewriting this, then you should be thankful, and I'm not taking it late. So this I have found to be a helpful process. The kids who really do want to rewrite and learn from it, do it. And the kids who are, you know, we're just going to change one or two things, don't. So I have found that really helpful. I also, just like I do for the other kind of feedback, I have them sometimes just highlight, oops, sorry. If you are rewriting and I maybe didn't give them all those requirements that I just showed you, then I might have them just highlight all the changes you made. You know, and then when that one kid turns it in and there's like one thing highlighted, you're like, wow, okay, well, I won't spend a ton of time on this, you know, because it is a lot to grade, and people, a lot of times that's why people don't do it, because, oh my gosh, we have to keep grading this, like, I don't have forever. But allowing them or having them point out what they changed, you know, just makes it quicker for us and makes them see what they're doing. If I don't know if you've ever seen the post, I wrote a post for Cult of Pedagogy called Delaying the Grade. And it's about how I give students a reflection based on the feedback. So I give them the rubric, and then I give them this little reflection. So first, read your entire essay from title to conclusion. Based on your reading, what observations can you make about your essay? What did you do well? What did you not do well? Write 3 observations. So they have to literally say, here are 3 things I've noticed. And then they have to go over the feedback, and between the feedback and your rereading, what 2 questions do you have? Like how to fix something, what is wrong with something, why something's good or not good. And then lastly, they have to use the rubric, and they have to decide where they're at, and they give me a grade. This has been life-changing. We conference. I don't give them a grade until they have reflected. And it's amazing because the kids will say things like, I can't believe I did this. You specifically told us not to do it, and then I did it anyways. And I'm like, yeah, welcome to my life. But, you know, in terms of feedback, this forces them to read the feedback, and they actually have to make observations and ask questions and then give themselves a grade. And I'd say 8 to 9 times out of 10, they give themselves a lower grade than I did. So, just in terms of, you know, using feedback after the fact, I have found that to be super helpful and kind of life-changing, to be 100% honest with you. That's kind of a big thing to say. But so anyways, if you have other ideas for giving effective feedback, I would, again, love to hear or see them. I have one more page that just has some resources. So I shared that in rewrite that I just showed you and the reflection that I just showed you. This is my post from Cult of Pedagogy, Delaying the Grade. And then there's also a post on my own site that kind of goes into some of the detail about things that I talked about today. The show and blog, the Google tools I told you about, using GAFE to delay the grade. On my blog, guest post from Chris Miller. This is that checkmark extension that seems kind of cool. And then lastly, Caitlin Tucker had creating editing shortcuts. So I would absolutely love it if you'd share any other resources you have with me, or put them in the comments, or I don't really know how this works, but whatever works for you. If you have any questions, please send me an email or reach out to me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. I'd love to connect with you and see you know, how else we can help our students how else we can give effective feedback and actually get our students to use the feedback that we're giving them. So thank you so much for stopping by today. And again, if you have any questions, just let me know.